hello, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 11 of the Voiro podcast. With me, as always, Kavita, Shenoy, founder and CEO of Voiro, and
Hello.
Jithin George, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend. How are you, Jimmy?
Some massive intro there.
Every intro is
Feels good.
massive.
Yeah.
Every intro is a spectacular one. How are you?
Good,
How are you?
good.
How are you feeling this Friday,
Good.
March 24th?
I feel like we need to have some background music to this.
You want background music?
Yeah.
We do in post, but you also want it here in the room.
Yeah. I think we need to. This Friday, I'm feeling a little like out of sorts.
Have you learned the Natu step?
No, I saw that you learned it and that you showed it to us in the middle of a food court.
Yes.
And it was quite okay. I mean, actually, you're very geeky. Like, you want to learn everything and you want to be perfect at everything.
I want to learn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Very cool. It
But
was
maybe next episode we weave that in.
cool.
Anyway, so here are some of the things that I saw us all jam about this week, and I thought we should talk about it on the podcast. Netflix announced some numbers, and I wanted to know both your reactions to it. Netflix's ad tier has added 1 million users. They have 1 million monthly active users. And I remember last season we talked about Netflix returning some of the advertisers' budgets, and everyone said we knew it, they were bound to fail, this and that. And now Netflix has, of course, fulfilled all of their forecasted deliveries to advertisers, and they seem to have done all right. What are your early reactions to Netflix's numbers?
Jimmy, why don't you start since, I insisted that somebody else join us on this podcast.
Yeah, so they did mention 1 million
Hmm?
users, which are ad supported, but they didn't talk about overall what is the increase in the total number of users. For me, going with the ad supported model is to quickly get on more users who are not able to pay that premium, but can pay the lower tier version of it. They didn't mention that. The number we did get is that it's 20% of the overall new users. That seems a little low to me. So I don't know if it's a success. According to me, it's not.
I think it's a good start, right? And one of the things that I was reading about, they already have some 74 million in the US. That's a lot of users. It's almost like, where are you going to go from here? And they have to actually create a market for themselves. But the interesting point to note is that in the kind of people that have come back on this ad-supported tiers, they haven't cannibalized their premium-paying audience. They've got their lapsed users and non-users. So they've actually got people who they lost earlier to price raises or pricing, and they've got new people who are saying, let me see what Netflix is all about. And so that's good news for them as a company.
As much as it has taken a few quarters for them to get this right, it was pretty fast. I remember a few months ago, and even on our podcast, every week the news was some gloomy thing about Netflix. It was like, they lost subscribers, and then this happened, and their streaming is bound to fail, and then they could not sustain it. And we talked about Schadenfreude back then, where a lot of people were waiting for them to fail, and they seem to have made it through that period. And there was a time when all the world could talk about is, oh, look at this, they've failed. And I feel like it's almost overnight. They switched models, went against something they had decidedly chosen not to do for like a couple of decades now. And then they've launched it. And they also launched it in a few countries. It's not a global launch just yet, as far as I'm aware. And I think they've done well.
And they've cracked down on this whole passport sharing and who all are part of your family. That's a little sad, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business, and you have to pay for it. We've all been conditioned for so long, especially in India, to expect everything for free. And that's scary from a business perspective, right? Because how much can you give for free, and when is it not going to come back and bite you as a business and force you to take hard calls like this that shock everybody? Like we were talking about how our favorite coffee place has strategically increased their prices. It was Amco, right? There was a big board outside that said, whatever we were getting for 180 rupees is actually at a discount now, 150. And then the next thing we knew, the prices had been raised from 150 to 180. And they were like, well, actually that was just a discount.
And the discount was temporary.
Yeah. So they kind of led us up to a price increase.
That's what Disney did.
Yeah.
With their initial offering, they made that that tier as ad supported, and they raised the prices.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah. Do you want to go back to an ad supported
Yeah.
or you pay a little more?
pay a little more if you want.
I also think that Netflix was just like restricting the number of devices or restricting password sharing is a very normal thing to do. I just think that the PR was a little out of control. Also, because for the longest time, Netflix turned a blind eye to password sharing, and everyone found it to be very cool that Netflix didn't care and you could share passwords.
Growth at all costs.
Growth at all costs, and anyone could have a great time. They went from doing something that was super abnormal to doing something that was very normal. And suddenly, the fact that those two
Everybody's up in arms.
Everybody's up in arms. Disney's done it for the longest time. Disney Plus, Hotstar, if you log in from multiple devices, it detects it and shuts you off from one of the devices. And that's totally okay.
It's okay. It's the content is expensive to create, and for years with television we've paid for our content and we've gotten ads. So this whole free with like no ads, etc., is ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, and I'm glad it's changing. At least we can keep our jobs now.
Speaking of ad-supported models, the IPL is here, guys. How
And
are you
free,
both feeling?
and free.
And ad-supported. And ad-supported. We are a week away from the 11th? No.
31st of March
Sorry,
is the
not 11th.
first.
What am I saying? 2000, the 15th.
Oh, IPL, the 15th IPL.
We are a week away. Yeah, 15th IPL.
Yeah.
15th, 16th. Oh my God.
I don't know. Like, we had 1 year. We had 2 IPLs, right?
We had the same IPL split into two.
two
2,
parts.
yeah.
So it's okay that I've lost count. So we are a week away from the 2023 IPL. Good save. Yeah. And I'm excited. I'm excited as a fan. I'm excited to watch an ad-supported model. I'm excited to see them possibly move concurrency up because it's free. Push the boundaries of how many active users they can get. And I'm also excited as a fan.
Yeah.
Who's your team?
I have a team. I don't have a team. I'm just really worried for this whole system because it's free, number one. Everybody will log on. The last time this was streamed on this particular platform it was 110 million, right? And now they're expecting 550 million. That's like 5x. And they have to serve ads, and they have to make sure that their target is going to be a defining moment for
They'll handle it. They'll handle it. This
Yeah.
is Jio. This is the company that connected this entire country. I think they'll handle it. Who's your team?
Jimmy,
RCB,
do you really have a team?
Jimmy has a team.
Really?
He's a Formula One fan. He's a Ferrari fan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but then
I
IPL,
have a team.
You have a team?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Maybe it's a
This is
red
brand new
team, by the way.
information.
It's probably RCB and Ferrari.
Scarlet.
Yeah.
Because you're because it's all red, because you're
It's
Ferrari,
all
is
red.
it?
It's
Oh
all
my
red.
god.
Jimmy's a disgusting Ferrari fan.
Yeah. What is your team, Anand? Since you're
In which
bursting to
sport?
in IPL.
So for the longest time, my whole life, I've been a sports fan without the ability to have a strong allegiance. I never could. I follow the NBA. I follow tennis. I just love a good game. And so when the IPL started, I was like, my city has a team. And then they turned out to stink. So I'm really struggling with this one. If I have to pick a team, I'll pick my home team. But
Yeah, you have to. I mean,
wish
you
they
have to
got
be
their
loyal.
act. I wish they got their act together.
They will. One day they will.
Yeah. I want to say, I'm moving
I tried
loyalties to
really
Bombay
hard
and
this
stuff.
time around. Yeah, because of Mumbai Indians.
because I moved to that city and loved it. But no, this is my team and they
You
have to
gotta- you
do
gotta
something.
stay by
They have to do
RCB.
something.
You got to stay.
And then the
with
women's
yourself.
IPL, they went and made the same mistake. They spent their money poorly, blew all of it up on like one or two players. And
Have you read the rules of IPL carefully? Like how this game is. It's not like regular cricket.
what
Do you know
talking-
that?
What you talking about, Willis?
So in preparation because you put IPL down and you said, I want to know about your teams. I was like, oh my God, I had this serious pressure to find the new team because I was like, I can't say RCB because they're really not the winning team. But now, since you have normalized it for us to be back.
And you are, as I understand, you are a patron of RCB Cafe.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
You must.
And RCB Cafe who hasn't raised their black coffee prices versus
Clearly, they also don't know the rules.
yeah, they don't know the rules. Anyway, so I was reading about reading up about the IPL rules, and they have this entire rule about impact player. You know what an impact player is? I do not know what an impact player is. Do you know?
No.
No, you don't. You have a favorite team, and you don't know how this game is played.
I only know it because I play a fantasy league every year.
Okay, so there's an impact player. And then they also have, this time they're allowing you to choose your 11 after the toss decision.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so
I did
that's
not know
interesting.
that.
That's
I
an
did not know
interesting,
that.
that's an interesting take. Hey, look, I gave you guys brand new information
Hang on.
about a sport.
Hang on. If I recall, the last Voiro cricket match, you were the man of the match.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Why is it surprising?
That is true. That is true. They were also very, very kind and didn't bowl very, very tricky shots. So I was
Who's
able
got the trophy?
Yeah, that's true. Outcomes matter. That's all. Yeah, so I was quite impressed by these rules. They have a lot of these various tiny little rules that make the game. I'm assuming pretty interesting. I don't know about the impact player stuff. What is this impact player? What
I
happens
just
to
know it
them?
from a fantasy standpoint. You
So-
get double the points.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
And you
I'm
can
not sure.
change them out at some
You can
point.
change them out every match.
Yeah, and there's something about if somebody gets injured, then you can put them in and so on and so forth. So it's cool. And then there's something about players that are overseas versus non-overseas, and there's a cap on the number of overseas players and stuff.
That's always been
Yeah,
there.
that's
Yeah. We know some stuff.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Jimmy and I are.
All right. I mean, the
Sports fans.
fact that I eyeballed this and I was able to tell you something new is just like I'm taking a point. Point
So
one.
hang on.
for
You
a-
still have not
Ding, ding,
staked the
ding.
claim. Who is your team?
Mine RCB.
RCB.
Now
Okay, great.
I can't move away
Okay, so
from
to
that.
my dear RCB, please, please, I'm begging
Also
you.
because Danish is going to be around, right, to give us some good content.
Yes, of course. But Danish, as I understand, is also working with Geo directly.
So that Mumbai
He will,
Indians.
no, the entire league.
Oh, okay.
The entire league.
Very cool. For the Bangalore boy.
RCB, please, I'm begging you, please. Okay, moving on. I was looking into all the drama around TikTok in the United States this week. The CEO of TikTok has been summoned for a congressional hearing, which was still taking place as of 5 or 6 hours ago. And I hear that he got grilled about data privacy, Project Texas, TikTok's relationship with the mothership in China. And we have, for the longest time, talked about the strength of the platform, their ability to drive creator revenue, creator tools. We've always been big fans of what the product has done. I'm curious to know what you think the fallout will be if TikTok actually gets banned in the US. Kavita and I have always been upset that we got robbed of the TikTok experience.
I know. I mean, I didn't even get onto this.
Yeah,
page.
I didn't
just from a distance, and I'm like, oh, can I please? Look, one of the things I don't know, Jimmy, what you feel about this whole congressional hearing thing is so scary. It feels like you're going to the principal's office.
Viva.
Yeah, it is nuts, and I mean, it's reminiscent of so many things, right down from the Inquisitions to whatever you see in Harry Potter, or and also how you feel when you go to the principal's office when you are younger and in trouble. But the kind of questioning and how they are unconvinced in this congressional hearing is telling. They're super unconvinced, and this guy is trying to really, really convince them. And
I
that's not
do
happening.
believe, though, that these hearings are very one-directional. Like,
Yeah,
these senators want to yell at you, and
Yeah.
the minute you fight back, they're like, I want this is my time. I'm
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
clock. I want my time back. It's almost just a series of monologues, and then snippets make their way around the internet and find their way to TikTok.
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced at all, Mr. Chu. Oh my God. And I was like, I really feel for you. Because on one side, TikTok is a thriving business, and they're moving towards trying to get them public, and they're pushing for them to be sold. They're trying to stave it off because, I mean, like we just spoke about good business before this, right? About how people have to pay for stuff, and businesses exist for a reason. And now here you have a government who's forcing you as a business to do something that you had never planned to do at all, because you are a privately held business, albeit from another country that you don't have good relationships with. What do you think about the whole data thing and Chinese authorities managing data?
See, it seems they've made up their mind. This is how it's done.
To ban them?
To ban
I
them.
don't know.
In favor of, like, who's going to win? Tell me who's going to win.
It's a political trap because the Democrats might end up alienating 100 million users and the Gen Z vote. So it's not only on merit. There is that factor. So they may not end up actually doing it.
But then won't like Meta pick up the pieces, at least immediately?
Because
Because
waiting, because Instagram Reels is
yeah,
ready,
and
YouTube
as
Shorts
a
is ready.
content creator, I'm not really putting all my eggs into one basket. Yes, sure, TikTok is part of my strategy to get out there, and they definitely have better creator tools. I don't know. I mean, okay, shut down. I'm gonna like make sure that I get my views from Instagram and Snap and everybody else, and go on with my life. I mean, what was life before TikTok?
Yeah. I remember when you and I met with the ShareChat CEO, Ankush, who talked about the fact that ShareChat, much like TikTok, is about a single purpose. full screen vertical videos, short videos, and they're grabbing that attention bucket. Whereas he said Reels is complicated because they have two sides to their product and they will always end up with one foot on either side of that fence. There is a lot of evidence if you look at Twitter's product roadmap, if you look at Adam Mosseri's conversations around where Instagram is going, that they're all kind of blending into that one format. But I do think TikTok has cult following, which if you rip, it will have some ramifications.
I think in Australia, they took away the music aspect in TikTok and it collapsed. I was reading something about it. And we were talking about how on Instagram, we discover a lot of our music as well. And TikTok became TikTok because of Musical.ly, right? When they acquired
Which was an American company,
Yeah.
by the way. An American company was acquired by ByteDance, merged with TikTok, launched back in the US, and now they're fighting because they're saying, are you a
For the sake
Chinese
of our
company?
listeners, right? What is Project Texas? What is this whole fracas over TikTok? And where are we today?
So the Biden administration has issued what seems to be an ultimatum to TikTok, which is to say, either you sell your American entity and have all your data ring-fenced and owned and run by an American company, which is Oracle and in Austin, Texas, and therefore Project Texas, or we'll ban you from the United States entirely. Now, banning seems to be a very extreme step, which has all of these ramifications. The TikTok CEO has insisted that banning will not solve the problem. There's a lot of people who are saying Project Texas may also not solve the problem. But that is the Biden administration's ask.
And why are they asking them to shift all their data into?
Because there is fear, especially in the run-up to the 2024 US election, that what happened in 2016 could repeat itself, which is foreign entities could study data about American users and not just have access to it, but also influence public opinion, which is kind of what happened with the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal in 2016. The accusation was that Russian interference created fake or biased political ads which influenced public opinion, which got everyone to put Trump in power. Given the range of influence that TikTok has, especially with not just Gen Zers, actually with all generations, the fear is that there could be Chinese influence because of the complicated way in which these companies are held, and evidence that has come to light that Chinese employees can access data about American users and also influence the algorithms to then... And I mean, we've talked about this before. People are watching TikTok for hours a day. So the argument that TikTok can influence opinion is, I think, fairly solid.
So I think there's that one first part, which is data, right? And I don't know about, what do you think about data being hosted in different countries? Because even India has these laws, right? If you have financial data, it has to be hosted on our shores.
TikTok has already proposed a solution of having Oracle store it and do all of those things, but they're still keeping the algorithms with them. They've learned a lot from this data, right? That is the value already that is there. They're keeping that close to them. Having the data reside in the US.
Yeah. I was listening to the congressional hearing, right? Apparently there's an Article 7 and 10 in China that says that if you are a Chinese-owned company, then they have all the right, the government has all the right to ask you for any kind of data from your company. And that is what's scaring the US political system, because they're like, there's no way around that. And it doesn't matter whether it's residing on our shores or no, but if you're a China-owned company, which is why they're asking them to sell off their company, which is, I don't know whether this has ever happened in the history of any kind of company, but for a government to ask you to sell off a company is
Who would have thunk it?
Yeah, it's unprecedented, right? And the other part, the only time I've actually thought of this is when we nationalized banks, right? When they said when the RBI went around nationalizing banks and that we need to have a centrally owned system in a country. But the kind of things that a government now has to think about for their people
That they're not equipped to do.
They're not equipped to do at all. Absolutely none. And we have GPT, we have GPT-4, right? We have AI coming in. And we have TikTok, what you just spoke about, which is the learning aspect of it, where you're training the algorithm to be able to sort of suck you into the system. There's a huge lobby for the fact that this is affecting teenagers and their mental health dramatically and negatively. And we see that in our own homes, right? We see that in kids in restaurants, and you're like, the minute you take away a phone or an iPad, they freak out. They go on to this like, I don't know, they're like you've taken away a drug. So it is, and nobody has any kind of compounded data to actually prove that this does not have long-term impacts because this is fairly new.
Yeah. There was a Google case that was put in front of the Supreme Court around, I think, privacy or one of these. There's a lot of Google cases that get sent up to the Supreme Court in the US. But I think it was either Sonia Sotomayor or Elena Kagan, one of the two Supreme Court justices, who basically heard them out and then looked at the 9 Supreme Court judges and said, this is not the most qualified group to talk about the internet. And I feel the same way when I watch these congressional hearings. It's not. It's a very layered problem. And I think some of the arguments I've heard are banning is not going to solve it. I mean, India banned TikTok years ago, but there is evidence to show that until today, the data that still is there on their servers about Indian users is very accessible to all of their employees. We live in a complicated, bizarre sort of intersection of events. Because I remember when Cambridge Analytica came out, Mark Zuckerberg at one point said, I just made this app in my dorm room, man. Like, I did not think it would influence an election and be part of collusion or Russian interference. And I think that's repeating itself. There's an interesting story of how the founder of ByteDance was so enamored by Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg that he wanted to build an app that could be used globally. And apparently he had all these things on the wall of ByteDance's office back when they first launched Douyin and then bought Musical.ly. The office used to say, every day is day one, or whatever that Amazon saying is. But he was so influenced by these global tech CEOs that he wanted to sort of build something of that scale. And he did. And now this, because of the sheer strength of geopolitical
Second order
tension.
effects, man. Everything has cause and effect. The last thing about TikTok, which is a sad thing, and there's a positive spin on how TikTok exists, and it's also about the ecosystem and how young teenagers who are first jobbers or who are in first year of college, and I know both of you like picked up jobs when you were in college, right? And pay your way through life, not just tuition. Back in the day, you would either have teaching, or you'd be a teaching assistant, or you pick up a job on campus in one of the stores, or you would get something that is just above minimum wage. But today, kids are exploring their scope of what they're talented at, and they're getting paid for it. So I was reading the story about how one of these college kids discovered how they were into fantasy photography, and that they would get gigs because they would use like graphic design and photography and put up their work on TikTok, and then they would actually get paid gigs for themselves, for people who are regular people who want to photograph themselves in all of these, in all of these fantasy costumes and in these fantastical locations and so on and so forth. And they made a lot of money to pay their way through college and life, and also got to explore their interest and develop their talent. And it was all because of TikTok. And it was a great marketing tool for them. And that's going to go away, right? It's very difficult for people to be discovered today if you don't have things like TikTok. But how do you regulate it? Because you can discover good things and bad things. But I think that's life, right?
Yeah. I'm guessing by the next podcast, there will be some decision made or a little more progress on this. But I just hope that...
The next podcast, we'd have been watching Succession as well.
Where do we watch it?
Well, yeah, this is a problem.
Where do we watch it? We have to figure it out. You talked about the fact that we use TikTok to now discover a lot of our music as well, in addition to just watching and liking short videos. Spotify. I don't know if you guys have had time with the new user interface, but they launched a new user interface. It's got video cards. It's backed by a video strategy. They have a video ad play behind the scenes. My first impression was I did not like it.
Does it look suspiciously like TikTok?
It's moving in that direction. But their stated aim is that they want to solve for foreground discovery of music, where effectively what they're saying is you discover your music on TikTok and then come to Spotify, and they want to move upstream and be a part of that discovery journey. They also want to do foreground discovery as opposed to active discovery, which is very much like what Glance has done. They're saying you today look for an artist or an album or a podcast on Spotify and then move to a playlist and then allow us to recommend something for you sort of alongside search. But they're saying, how do we help you with discovery when you don't have the clear intent for it? And that's, in their view, what TikTok's already doing.
Yeah,
so
you don't know what you don't know. And you don't want to be caught in a filter bubble either. So I'm going to give you the ability to discover new things about what's happening.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jimmy?
I like it. It makes perfect business sense. Why?
Yeah.
If TikTok is
Mm.
TikTok is going
Sorry,
to get
sorry, you're never gonna let that go. Tic Tacs.
if TikTok is going to get banned, well, you're suddenly your what the avenue of getting discovered is reducing. You better take control of that. And it's driving better engagement on you. Otherwise, you're just like turning on Spotify, putting it in your pocket, and going about. But here, you're suddenly engaging more with your audience. Will this open up video ads for these guys? Now, this is an interesting way of getting more revenue, right? Another channel of revenue as compared to just simply raising your prices.
Yeah, or putting in annoying audio ads that actually spoil user experience. Because when you're in a process of discovery and we say foreground discovery, you're in a more relaxed state of mind, right? You're just
You're
browsing.
leaning back.
You're okay. You're okay for this to be interrupted because you're open to this, and that's a good emotion to plug in an ad, give you something funny, something left field. And this is what we're talking about with Edo, that company that we're talking about the other day, with what NBC had spoken about in terms of how do you feel and what is the mood of this user watching this particular content. So what kind of ad should you be showing at this point in time, and match that emotion of the ad so that you're able to get them to react in a favorable manner. And there are a lot of companies that have come up to be able to map that content and what the human emotion is behind that. But technically, I feel like you're saying, monetization is important. And the fact that you're able to understand, you're able to plug that in at a time when people are actively listening is also forgiving and probably get you more attention and discovery and taking control. Yeah. Taking control of your discovery funnel is something that every business does. Why not Spotify?
Yeah, it makes business sense.
Totally.
My gripe with it is when a product I use heavily changes its user interface, I'm always a little.
Yeah, but then you get educated on it and it gets
Yeah, it takes a week.
It takes a week. And then you're like, yeah.
Nobody likes change.
Yeah, nobody likes
But people
change.
get used to it.
Yeah. Ben Thompson on Stratechery has broken this down really well in an article that we will link in the show notes, where he breaks down the concept of advertising into search and display into contextual and targeted. And he said, yeah, there's a lot of overlap between these. But he said this is Spotify taking control because they have traditionally always been search advertising in the sense that I recommend things to you based on what you search. But this is taking over display and taking over contextual and maybe also targeted advertising within the Spotify universe.
Speaking about targeted and contextual advertising, I was reading about Gum Gum and Amagi, right? So Amagi is all like on a PR drive, right? They are like constantly like churning out newer and newer partnerships. And Gum Gum has been around for a really long time in contextual advertising, and they have done some really good work in trying to position ads next to the right kind of content, and also have different types of information to be able to place that ad contextually, not just content, but I don't know. I'm not gonna claim to know a lot about it, but it's a higher order of contextual advertising. So I was curious to know what are they doing in the CTV space, and it's quite cool actually. It's very simple, and most good ideas are the ones everybody gets, and they're mostly very, very simple, right? So if you have a video that you are watching, say you're watching somebody making tacos, right? And you have a cooking show, and there are tacos being made. At that point in time, when they're making those tacos, you can actually have a small little ad on the lower third, like not an Ashton band, but it's the lower third, which talks about sauce, right? Saying fiery taco sauce, for example. And you have a little QR code right there, so you can sort of, with your phone, be able to interact with it and either buy it or like it. So there are three things that happen here. One is contextually placed, because every time you watch a show about food, you're like ravenous. You're like, oh my God, I want to like pour myself a glass of wine and kick back and really like dig into this food. Second is you're open to it's one of those things where you're open to sort of buying other things, and you're like, oh, what are they buying? It could be the the cutting equipment, it could be the apron, it could even be the sauce, right? Because you're open to that stuff. And the third is, for an advertiser, you will now be able to map search queries, how many visits happened at the time that your ad was played out. So then you actually know, even if I don't buy it, if I've been curious and I queried or I looked it over at that point in time, and say maybe 7 days later, I'm able to marry the efficacy of that ad on that particular spot because I knew exactly when I placed that ad. So it's so interesting to note that television is moving towards being a performant ad space. And which was something that, it was probably retrospective at best, maybe in 30 days, maybe a month, or your sales volumes or sales, how much you did with that campaign that you would
The
ascribe to.
granularity of this data, I think, will be very, very useful.
Yeah. It's interesting where CTV is headed, especially with this kind of stuff. So
Kavita
then
has pulled in a CTV plug.
oh God, I gotta do it. Every single episode. But that kind of begs a lot of questions on that need to be answered on how are these things going to be planned. There's a lot of work to be done on planning. How do you plan this stuff? Earlier, like TV was so simple to plan, right? You have spots, you have some GRP, you have some content, everything is done. Now you got to think.
This is
so
going to
many
require
things.
a very different type of thinking.
Very.
Speaking of PR runs, Satya Nadella has been all over the internet.
In Satya, we believe.
In Satya, we believe is something we heard someone say yesterday.
Yeah.
Jimmy was talking to me about his frustrations with Microsoft Excel on a Mac. Jimmy has moved to a MacBook.
Oh, I thought Microsoft
many
Excel
years.
is good on Mac, no?
That's
But
what I
the
told him.
shortcut-
I said the
shortcut
post Satya Nadella era has been really, really good for Excel. GPT-4 has launched in the last week. It's a closed ecosystem. It's cleared every exam, the SATs, GREs, GMATs, and it has really, really excited the entire world. I was wondering if you had any early thoughts. Did you get a chance to look at some of those use cases? I loved Satya's presentation on the entire Office 365 stack and what it can do. What are you excited about?
It's a lot more creative. I think that is exciting, very interesting. How it can be, used in so many different places. I've always believed that, in its current form, sure, I don't know where this will go, but it needs a proper goal in mind, right? And then you can, if you ask AI to just, hey, make a good painting, how good? What is good? But if you say, hey, give me a brand might say, give me a creative so I can reach this kind of an audience, right? It understands that well. It understands what is that audience, what will work for this audience. It knows because there's so much of historical data and it can deliver that. I think it's going to be very interesting what we can do with GPT-4.
Yeah. Santosh is under the link on AI in viewability and measurement and about like Netflix using integral ad science to be able to manage third-party viewability of ads that are played out on Netflix, which they were not allowing, I think, earlier, but now they are. And it's obviously amazing. And CTV is at 93% and the regular is at some 70%. So basically CTV is the hero, right? Let's all just like give them the position at this point in time. But how AI can actually be used in terms of driving viewability and for measurement is something that is a little scary because when you look at an ad being served out on television, there was only one thing on CTV where you're saying that it's downloading and the TV actually the screen is off and the ad is actually playing. So it's playing to a screen that's not actually on, but then the box is on or the back end is on and all of that. The general behavior when an ad break comes on is you go get a glass of water, you go get a snack, you leave the room basically. You're saying, okay, my content is gonna come back, right? So what AI can actually do is be able, because today we have cameras and we were talking to somebody yesterday who was saying that they want to get into a dual experience of the largest screen in your home, which is the next step. And that's not very far away because we saw it with Microsoft's, Xbox where they had that bar where you could
Kinect.
The Kinect, yeah. And so TVs will soon come with that because gaming is huge. Gaming has moved online. We no longer buy DVDs. And so the ability for you to have a two-way experience on the largest screen in your house is definitely something that's around the corner. But if I have a two-way experience, then I can also only serve an ad when I know that people are in the room. Oh my God, that sounds horrendously intrusive. But the point is that at least I know as an advertiser, I served it out to a room full of people versus an empty room. Yeah. So, I mean,
I'm not sure how I feel about a camera on my TV.
I don't think I will get a camera on my television. But you never know. At some point in time, you'll be like, yeah, why not? Because I want to have.
There will be some convenience factor that will one day
Yeah,
fix
you
this
will say,
case.
I want to talk to my kids. and in on big screen.
There's camera on your laptops.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a little door.
No.
I don't have a door. I just shut my laptop and I realize it doesn't really shut off if I put my laptop down. But yeah, this kind of stuff, like we're talking about in, our the whole TikTok conversation, right? We were saying that it's disruptive. It's got like negative influences and stuff like that. But everything has two sides to the story.
Always. There's two sides of the GPT-4 flood deluge that I've found into. One is, of course, before GPT-4 came out, I got my hands on ChatGPT. I tried it, and of course, I was amazed with every single interaction. But GPT-4 has been accompanied through multiple flavors of the hyper-personalization conversation, where they're saying, yes, so far, its ability to answer your question, to help you, to write copy for you, to be creative has been great. But it could have the potential for brands, for marketers, to hyper-personalize creatives or copy or any sort of interaction, which the extreme version of that is being able to watch what's going on in front of the TV and then figure out how to do it. But the theoretical positive possibility of knowing who's in front of the screen and then having a creative that is tailored to that household, and the creative itself is unique. I was talking to someone earlier this week who said the ad industry will realize that the upside, the ROI to hyper-personalization is just not there, and the computational complexity is not worth it. And therefore, the internet and all of the advancements in privacy will lean in the direction of contextual and better segmentation and not hyper-personalization. But here is a technology that could potentially prove that it's not computationally complex. I was listening to my favorite All-In pod earlier this week, which for the last 2 episodes has been just the gloomiest. They're talking about the Silicon Valley Bank and the run on the banks and how everyone's money is going to be like toilet paper soon and stuff like that. But in the last episode, there's the last 5 minutes where they asked David Friedberg, who's the science corner of the episode, to say, hey, tell us something uplifting. And he talked about something that I'm super unqualified to talk about, but he talked about the fact that there has been a breakthrough in superconductivity at room temperature. And he said if the science community figures out how to commercialize this and actually prove that it's true, AI can become very energy efficient, which kind of puts this on its head. Because now you're saying here is a technology that's computationally not as intensive as we thought it would be. And as we can get the privacy right, then this world where a TV can have a camera that can know who's in front of it and then on the fly create a creative that was not intended for anybody else on the planet. Is that too creepy or is it?
Yes, yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried for my children and I'm really thinking Skynet is definitely coming. It is definitely coming. Yeah.
But
yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
No, the AI world is definitely interesting, but right now it is expensive. And I read this entire thread about how everybody's going, hammer and tongs against getting some kind of, sort of pulling something from the GPT-4 repository, but you have to really pay a lot. It's very expensive, and it's expensive to experiment as well.
Yeah.
And like all things, it will become cheap as it goes along.
Yeah. And Sam Altman specifically said that creating an open version of every previous version was a mistake. And this one is closed and it's becoming paid. And I mean,
it's time to make money, people. It's time to make money.
Yeah.
Let's all make money.
Yeah. I want to get my hands on every part of the Microsoft stack right now and see what it feels like. Some of those use cases just are.
Yeah, I like these action items. Yeah. What is it? Instead of having these boring long minutes of the meeting of he said, she said, person one,
that
person
word,
two.
I hate the word minutes. I've always hated the word. Send me the minutes. Who's
Mom.
writing the minutes?
M-O-M.
Yeah. Someone can do it for you. You can walk into a meeting 10 minutes late, say, catch me up. And it'll say, Kavita said this. And then Anand got excited. And then it can literally break that down for you. And I think that's useful. And then the fact that you can say, all right, make a proposal for this customer on the back of this meeting.
Jimmy, get us there.
Yes.
Come on. Okay. So to wrap up, we've had a lot to talk about today. A lot to do with the TikTok drama in the US, all the various things that we read during the week, and what we think about AI. And of course, all of us are, in varying degrees of excitement, excited about IPL and what it's going to hold for India. And one of the things that we heard about yesterday when we spoke to this person from one of the very large broadcasters in India was that live is the best way for a broadcaster to actually give their audiences the reason to sort of stick on to them. And it'll be through live sports and other types of live events. I'm curious to know what other types of live events will drive this kind of viewership, but you never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah. If I was an AI bot listening to this podcast, I would figure out that if I have to ever have a controversial meeting with Jithin, I have to wear a red shirt.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. Just remember
I'm going to file it away. I'm going to file it away. Anyway. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Anand, and thank you, Jithin, for joining us today. Thank you, Santosh and Gautam, for being in the room today. And thank you, everybody, for listening. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.